design. The optimal life with ARAET Barnett. Shine, be an agent of change. The future is alive.
Welcome to the Optimal Life podcast. My name is ARAET Barnett, and I'm really excited for you to be here with me today. We're going to be talking about a fascinating topic that I think is going to be really helpful to everybody listening in here. It is the science of thought and the power of narratives. It's one of those topics that has a lot of confusion behind it, and I'll talk a little bit about why that is. But what you'll find is that understanding the relationship between thoughts and thinking, the role of personal narratives or those stories that we tell ourselves, and the impact all of this has on your mental health is really important. And I was motivated to start this, or I actually wrote an article recently, but also to do this podcast episode. And by the way, this is our 10th episode, so it's very exciting that we've made it all the way to 10 now. So I was actually saw a social media post that got me thinking that this is really something that needs to be talked about, because the social media post said something about your thoughts drive how you feel. Your thoughts drive how you feel. And it's interesting because the research shows that that's exactly the opposite causal relationship that is actually really going on. So again, this is a point of confusion for a lot of people. I've had these conversations with people, this confusion between what thoughts and thinking really is and the impact that thoughts have on and thinking has on a person's mental health. So we're going to deep dive into that, a little bit of the science behind this, and really understand how this impacts a person's well-being. Of course, this is the whole point of this, where we want to learn how to live an optimal life. Of course, head over to ARAEtBarnett.com to make sure you check out the certification programs in cognitive response therapy and the ARAET framework. Whether you're a mental health professional, a coach, or somebody that aspires to be either one, these programs really will empower you to teach others how to live their optimal life. You can integrate it into an existing practice. You can make this your own practice in your own way. It's very powerful science behind this, and very attainable certifications for you to empower yourself and empower others to live their optimal life. And the whole idea is we really want to usher in the new era of mental health. Mental health has been unaffordable, inaccessible, and largely ineffective. So the new era of mental health needs to be affordable, accessible, and effective for everybody that wants to make changes in their lives. So let's get into it. So the whole idea behind thoughts versus thinking. So if you were to sit quietly and just relax, you would notice immediately that there's this almost constant internal chatter that shows up. We think of that and describe that at times as a thought stream. I use that term a lot in my book, The Myth of Living Better. Of course, The Myth of Living Better is a book that I wrote a few years ago. It's available on Amazon. And I talk about the thought stream in that and the impact that the thought stream and these personal narratives have on a person's mental health. And it really reveals so much about these sort of habitual cycles that we live in. But if you just notice, you don't have control over these thoughts. And in fact, I really encourage people to remove the concept of trying to control thoughts in any meaningful way, because you don't control what shows up in that thought stream and in these personal narratives. But why is that? Why do we not control your thoughts? Now, I just want you to pause and accept that for a moment, because you have to understand that if you could choose your thoughts, you'd have to have the thought before you had the thought. So clearly, you're not controlling or choosing the thoughts that show up. I'm not choosing the words that come out of my mouth right now. You might say, hey, ARAET, of course you are. You're speaking fluently and you're explaining the topics well and all this. But if I had to choose each word that came out of my mouth, I wouldn't be speaking very well. I would have to constantly be stopping and hesitating every single moment that I was speaking. The thoughts are just, or the words are just coming out of my mouth, which means the thoughts that show up are just making their appearance. I don't control them. I don't choose them. So where are they coming from? Well, if you listen to some of the previous episodes or you read some articles on ARAEtBarnett.com, you would have learned a little bit about predictions. So what are predictions? The research is very clear on this. The research dating back all the way to 2009 from Friston et al. And many other research studies that have taken place over the last 15 plus years has demonstrated that the mind is a prediction machine. And why is that? Well, the mind always wants to keep you safe. It's wired. The nervous system is wired to move you away from threat and towards safety. And the way that it does that is it tries to make the best guess as to what it thinks is going to happen next, and tries to sort of reconcile the information from the body and the environment. And it's constantly in this guessing cycle as to what it thinks is actually going on in the world. You got to remember, your nervous system is trapped inside your body. So it has to make sense of the world on your behalf and to the best of its ability, and generate the appropriate energy and the appropriate information in order to empower you to do what's best for your survival. It's not about thriving. It's not about some future gain. It's about surviving your next moment. So where does these predictions come from? Well, predictions are created based on three factors. Of course, it's based on the environment. So you don't hear with your ears, you don't see with your eyes, you don't smell with your nose. These are just collection devices. They're collecting all the data from the environment and serving it up to your nervous system for interpretation. The second factor is the state of the body. So it's trying to figure out what is what we call the response state of the body in cognitive response therapy, the sort of the chemical and neurological configuration of your body at any given time. The state of the body tells your nervous system a lot about what is necessary for the next moment. Memories, that's the third factor. So memories, of course, would play into what it thinks is going to happen next. The best predictor of what's going to happen next is what has already happened previously. So, and I won't go into too much more detail because that's not the point of this particular episode. I would encourage you, there's been previous episodes that I've talked at great length about this. But the fact is that these predictions, pulling these three factors together, the environment, the state of the body, and the memories, it generates a bunch of energy for the body to initiate movement or motivate you to do something, and then information. And this episode, it's really about the information that we're talking about, because the information is exactly what we're talking about, the revealed thoughts. The way that the prediction makes its appearance to our conscious awareness is through the energy of the sensations of our body, but also the information of thought. So the result of the prediction is the energy, the sensations we feel, and the information of thought. That's how it's making its appearance to our conscious awareness. But you might be saying, hey, Elliot, what about all this positive thinking talk? And we have to think positively, and if we think positively, then we feel positive and all of this. Well, we have to understand the difference between thinking and thoughts. Thoughts are automatically generated on our behalf through the predictions. They're our unconscious communicating to our conscious awareness. Thinking is the way that our consciousness is applying some meaning to those revealed thoughts. This cannot be overstated. Thinking is our conscious intervention applied to thoughts. I really want everybody to pause and think about this for a minute, ironically. It's the idea that the information that's showing up from our conscious awareness, we don't choose. It's being done on our behalf by these predictions through our nervous system. It's trying to make sense of the world because it's trapped in our body. So it's just making its best guess as to the energy that you need and the information that you need to survive your next moment. Then you apply thinking to that. And that is your opportunity. Because I'm not going to go too much into detail about feelings versus sort of the identification of what. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the idea of feelings versus emotions here, because I'm going to do a separate episode on that, because I think it's a really big topic, the difference between feelings and emotions and the nature of emotions. But we have to understand that these feelings that we have and these thoughts that reveal themselves, we label them. We apply the meaning to those things. We apply these emotion words to the feelings. The feelings are just chemical releases of the body. We then apply words like stress, anxiety, fear, anger, jealousy, all these emotion words we apply to those sensations. And then the meaning that we assign to the thoughts are really our consciousness intervening into the prediction. And this is crucial to understand because that is where your opportunity lies. This is what we teach in cognitive response therapy. Cognitive response therapy is about understanding how the predictions reveal themselves to you, and they reveal themselves to you through that energetic feeling and sensation and the thoughts, but learning how to mindfully intervene into those natural automatic responses, these habitual cycles that we go through in our life or experience in our lives that drive the outcomes to our situations that we face, mindfully intervening in those and then redirecting those in a way that you can teach the unconscious mind what to do next. Next time that you face those situations, what do I really want to have happen? What energy do I want? What information do I want? So often what's happening is people get swept away by the energy that they're experiencing and they buy into the information that is revealed from the prediction. And this is why people tend to feel overwhelmed by stress or anxiety. This is the nervous system that's been conditioned to overreact to situations. So you get swept away by the energy that's generated by the prediction. And then the actual information tends to be negative. Well, why does the information tend to be negative? Well, if you think back, the whole idea here of the unconscious, of the nervous system, again, the number one job is to keep you safe, move you away from threat and towards safety. So why is it negative? Well, negative information serves your survival much more readily. Positive information is typically about seeking an opportunity. But again, doesn't really make any sense to try to seek an opportunity if you're no longer alive. So this is a very ancient instinct that lives within us. We are the descendants of those that were able to get up from the campfire and run away from the rustle in the bushes, not those that got curious and went to investigate. It might look silly because it was just a wind, but it could have been a lion. So at least you're still alive for the next time. So we are the descendants of those that reacted and right away and really bought into the energy and the information that the prediction revealed to the conscious awareness. So that ancient instinct still lives within us. So that's why the information tends to show up and be a little bit negative or tends towards the negative side of things. It's because that is serving our survival much more readily. So it is our job to understand that we can sit with that. We don't have to buy into it. We don't have to get swept away by it. Just because the nervous system, through to the mechanism of prediction, is communicating to us doesn't mean that we have to buy into it. We can push back on it. We can just let it go on by. Notice how thoughts just come and go. We think that they persist, but only if we apply meaning to them do they persist. We have many, 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 many thoughts throughout the day. There's only certain thoughts that we choose to sort of invest in and catch and assign meaning to. But that is our consciousness applying thinking to those thoughts. It is an opportunity for us to get a little bit of separation. This is what we teach in cognitive response therapy. A little bit of separation between the energy and the information that shows up from the prediction and the meaning and response, the meaning that we apply and the response that we give based on that information and the energy. That's where the opportunity resides. So and again, we have to think of this as narratives, stories that show up. And again, these are our stories. We have to remember that this is our nervous system. The predictions are from us. It's not like there's some wise being living within us that's communicating to us. This is us. And remember, this is also based on memory. So the three ingredients for the prediction is the environment, the response state of the body, and our memories. So this is our previous selves communicating to our current selves. Our previous self communicating to our current self. So if we think about that for a moment, that is just us communicating to ourselves. So we are allowed to tell ourselves the story that will empower us, that we want to be told. I'm not saying lie to yourself, but it is your story to tell. It's your story to intercept, retell in a way that will empower you in the moment that you're facing so that you can start moving towards living your optimal life. So there was a different episode that I did about the power of language. And language is so powerful, the different words that we use, the language that shows up from our unconscious, and how we use language in CRT to overcome things like the introspection illusion, the idea that we don't really know ourselves all that well, how we use language to resolve this inner dissonance. Sometimes there's disconnects between who we want to be and who we actually are, or how we want others to think of us and who we really are inside. All of this is possible through language, but in this sense, we are learning it through this idea of these predictions that show up, and how we get a little bit of separation between the energy that we feel and the thoughts that reveal themselves, and how we apply meaning to those through the thinking process and the decisions that we make based on applying thinking to those narratives. And in cognitive response therapy, we learn about predictive response cycles. Now, a prediction shows up, we respond to the world, we get some information back from that response. That's fed back into, guess what, the next prediction, because the prediction is based on memories, right? So if it's fed back in, then it's going to be influencing the next prediction. So then the prediction is generated, we respond to the world responds back, and that forms patterns, and those patterns eventually form predictive response cycles. And those cycles really become our life. They are what drive us in our everyday life. So if you're living a perfect life, great, that's awesome. But if you're not, then those predictive response cycles are exactly the opportunity to start living the life that you want.
Appropriate amounts of energy and more empowering information. If I was to describe somebody, the difference between somebody that is massively successful in their life or somebody that struggles with their mental health, it would be the answer to how well do you manage and respond your own physiological responses of your body. If you are getting swept away by the energy and you buy into these negative narratives, this thought stream that shows up, you're going to struggle. But you have to realize this is just the way that your nervous system has been conditioned. But the good news is what has been conditioned in can be conditioned out. Going through a journey in cognitive response therapy, whether you are a coach or a mental health professional that's helping others, or you're somebody that is doing this for yourself, this is the key unlock to helping somebody go from wherever they are now on the mental health continuum to living their optimal life. It is to recondition the nervous system to generate more appropriate amounts of energy. When I say appropriate amounts of energy, if you're getting overwhelmed, then it's not appropriate amounts of energy. If you have say social anxiety and you go into a social situation, you're getting swept away by the energetic response of the prediction. If you, in the same situation, the narrative that shows up is going to be negative and you're buying into that narrative, you're going to move away from that perceived threat. Of course, you're not actually in danger, but from your nervous system standpoint, you have conditioned, the nervous system has been conditioned to perceive that social situation as a threat. So you're going to move away from it. If you've moved away from it, the prediction was right. According to your nervous system, guess what's going to happen next? It's going to be reinforced, right? So we want to retrain the nervous system to say, no, I can lean into that experience. I don't have to buy into that
information. I don't have to get swept away by that energetic response. I can push back on this and I can start to retrain my nervous system to generate more appropriate amounts of energy and more empowering information in my moments so I can live an optimal life. All right, I'll see you next time.